Hi, my name is Carmen, and I am an early childhood special education teacher, a life and ADHD coach, and I'm the host of this podcast, Authentically ADHD. I created this podcast to help anyone wondering if they have ADHD, people who have been diagnosed for a while and want some more support and community. I'm here to bring you the latest research on ADHD and neurodiversities while we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of ADHD. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, my friend, and welcome back to the podcast. If you're new here, I'm a late diagnosed ADHDer, a teacher, a certified life and performance coach, and I'm the host of this podcast, Authentically ADHD. I started this podcast to help spread awareness and build a community for ADHDers who want to learn about the neurodivergent brain so that together we can gain understanding, self awareness, and the ability to improve our lives through scaffolding and supports. I'm so happy you're here. So let's get started. This week, we are talking about a topic that is pretty popular in the ADHD world because it's pretty difficult for us, and that is sleep, my friend. From having trouble falling asleep, staying asleep, and or getting quality sleep, sleep is hard AF for the ADHDer. And there's many different reasons for this, and I will get into the reasons and what we can do about it through the episode. I have a free follow along posted on my Patreon for all members. The link is below. You do have to become a member, but it's in the free tier. So I wanted to start this episode with what sleep truly is. Basically, what happens when we sleep and why is this so important? So when a human sleeps, we go through 4 phases of sleep, each having their own purpose. Those stages are called wake cycle, light sleep cycle, deep sleep cycle, and the REM cycle. They go just about in that order and then just repeat throughout the night. If you have a Fitbit, I know because I have one, you can estimate the phases of sleep you are in because it tells you. And it tells you how long that you were sleeping, if you wear it to bed, if you wear it to sleep. So cool. So why is it important that we get sleep and get good, enough sleep? So while we sleep, I want you to imagine this. There's like little maintenance men cleaning up the junk and building up myelin. From my research, myelin in the brain is this stuff like in our brain that helps it to communicate and essentially work in a more productive way. So when we are deprived of sleep, that myelin erodes, and the maintenance men are too tired to clean up the junk and the messes. So that's why cognition is lower. Memory, emotional regulation, self-motivation, and impulsivity are greatly affected when we're sleep deprived. It also higher your chance of getting dementia as you get older, the more like sleep deprived you are and how often that you're sleep deprived. Your immune system will also suffer when you don't get good and or enough sleep. We need sleep to restore our bodies and our brains. Period. So, now that I've talked about the importance of sleep, let's go into the connections between sleep and ADHD. Sleep is hard for the ADHDer for many reasons. We have hyperactive nervous systems, so whether that means you can't sit still, or your thoughts never stop spinning, or both, this affects our sleep. We hate routines, we don't like them. So often we put off that getting ready to go to bed because there is planning and prioritizing that goes into deciding to get off the phone or turn off the TV or whatever it is and decide to get ready for bed and go to sleep. There is this syndrome that ADHDers have, well, at least half of us have it, because our sleep-wake cycles are off kilter a little bit. It's called sleep-delayed sleep I'm sorry. Let me say that again. Words are hard sometimes. It's called delayed sleep phase syndrome. This syndrome acts as a barrier to the melatonin in our brains. So instead of naturally releasing at about 9 p.m., we instead usually get a surge of like energy, while neurotypical brains get that natural release of melatonin. ADHD brains are usually delayed by 2 or more hours in the natural release of that melatonin, if it even releases at all. Some of our brains are kind of so ridiculous that they don't release that natural melatonin. ADHDers tend to have issues with bedtime procrastination. This can be related to what I call, like what I just talked about, but it can also look like staying up to complete work, to watch a new TV show, or to do the quote unquote fun things that you don't believe you had enough time to do during the day, during your waking hours. This is usually correlated with a schedule that has no breaks or intentional rest scheduled in. It also correlates with the burnout. I'm so sorry to tell you, but it really is. Ask me how I know. Getting little sleep is just not safe for your mental or physical health at all. ADHDers tend to think that sleep is boring. We tend to think it's a waste of time, or we have fear of missing out on something while we're asleep. Our brains sometimes decide that the time when we lay down and it's quiet is now also the time where useless anxiety inducing thoughts need to appear. ADHD is also researched to be comorbid with things like sleep apnea, insomnia, and restless leg syndrome. These issues that we tend to deal with interrupt our sleep cycles. We, in turn, wake up not feeling rested. We are moody, and it takes a huge amount of effort to think or do anything of productivity. See, when the sleep stages are interrupted, our brain chemicals have a hard time regulating, and we already have a hard time regulating, right? Dopamine is regulated during sleep, and our brains need rest in order to work better and use that dopamine. So not only do we struggle with rest and sleep, but we have to work harder to get good quality sleep. I know, it's like an oxymoron. It's not fair. And I used to get really emotional about this. Ever since I was little, I remember laying awake at night for hours on end, thinking about all the things like space, the world, how small I was, just everything, all the thoughts. As I got older, it turned into ruminating thoughts. That's negative, reminding myself of my mistakes, the things I did wrong, and the things I messed up on in my life. And then, even after I fell asleep, I've always been an active sleeper. I've always had very vivid dreams. And my parents would tell me that they used to hear my legs and arms banging on the walls, only to check on me and see that I'm upside down. My legs are up the wall or I'm half off the bed. I'm still a pretty active sleeper, but I've worked hard to create routines and habits that help me sleep better at night. As you already know, if you've been listening to this podcast for any amount of time, you cannot, quote unquote, fix all of your sleep issues with one episode of Authentically ADHD. But I can give you some places to start, things you can slowly implement in order to improve your sleep. Take what you think will work for you and just leave the rest, okay? Please I invite you to only try one at a time. Because when we try to implement too many tools at one time, we usually cannot keep up. Then we get frustrated and stop all of it, which doesn't help anyone. And then what's the point, right? So what can we do? First, start with one. There are a few categories that have to do with sleep and getting good sleep. There are two that I personally focus on, which are sleep hygiene and a bedtime/nighttime routine. I never knew what sleep hygiene was. I always heard about it, but I never knew what it was. So I'm going to tell you guys. I used to hear this term all the time, and I was like, I didn't really understand it until I started to actually improve my sleep hygiene. So what is it? It's a set of habits and environmental factors that you use throughout the day in order to improve your sleep at night. These practices involved in sleep hygiene align with valuing your sleep, prioritizing it, personalizing it, trusting, and protecting your sleep. Sometimes creating an enjoyable bedtime routine, even is a part of this. It says to personalize, right, your routine. So make bedtime something that you look forward to. I do this by making a rule. My bed is only for sleep. And, sometimes other things. But when we use our beds as workspaces, as places to eat, or even just relax, it really confuses our brain when we need to actually go to bed. So develop some type of routine or signal that says, hey, my bed is for sleeping. I can relax on the couch. My bed is only for sleeping. And I don't know if you use your bed for personal, intimate things, but if you do, then those two things only. For me, when the sun goes down, I wash my face, brush my teeth, and change and take my night meds. I also use Fitbit guided meditations to help me start to relax. Yes, if you're wondering, after years of learning how to meditate, I still use guided meditation because it helps me. It definitely helps me when it's guided. I also have a little notebook and a pen right by my bed in order to brain dump all my thoughts, emotions, and anything else in my brain to help with the spiraling thoughts and rumination that used to keep me up. I find that doing that and brain dumping everything at the end of the day really, really helps me in order to keep my brain, kind of quiet so that I can go to sleep. So that's a big, big tip that's really easy that maybe you could start is just making a habit to empty out your brain before you go to bed. Another part of sleep hygiene is going to bed and getting up around the same time. I know it's something that I didn't like, but I've finally trained my body to go to bed between 8:30 and 9:30 and wake up around 5:30 to 6:30 during the summer right now. When I'm working, I push it back an hour because I do get up around 4:30 in order to do my morning routine. Sleep hygiene says all lights off and electronics should be off so it's dark and cool in the room. I still sleep with my TV on, but I don't think that it affects my sleep that much. I do put a sleep timer on it, and usually I'm asleep before it goes off, so it's all good. But I don't know. I think it's a trauma response, but I do sleep with the TV on. But here's the thing, I cannot be hot. I cannot sleep when I'm hot at all. So again, personalize it for you. I need it cool in the room, and I like to sleep with a blanket. Some other things I do for sleep hygiene that are researched to work is doing exercise during the day. And the research actually says that the earlier you do the exercise, the better. I avoid caffeine after 3 p.m. And I also avoid starting a new show or doing something that I could hyper focus on right before bed. Otherwise, what happens? Can you guess? We stay up all night doing something that we have no business doing, that we don't need to be doing all night, right? So, diet, like exercise, has an impact on sleep as well. For example, I'm lactose intolerant, so eating ice cream before bed will disrupt my sleep because my body has a really hard time digesting it. If you need to eat before bed, try to keep it light. Try to use, eat snacks and simple foods and small amounts. Try not to eat huge meals after, after a couple hours before bed. I've also pretty much cut alcohol out of my daily life. I'm not saying you have to do this. I'm just sharing the things that I notice have helped me. I notice how much it affects my sleep negatively when I drink. It may help me fall asleep, but then by 1 a.m., I'm up, I don't feel great, and I can't sleep. Alcohol makes me feel sick anyway, so cutting it out wasn't too hard. But I did notice that the alcohol may help me fall asleep, but it did not help me stay asleep. It was a coping mechanism that didn't really work for me. Um, and I looked this up, it's because of the sugar and all the things in alcohol that will release in your body later on. So it may help you fall asleep, but then that sugar and all the other things, that's why it may not help you stay asleep. Like alcohol, try to keep sugar at a low in the few hours before bed. Some other strategies that are in the research that I do use are using a sun lamp in the morning to help with the wake sleep cycles. I go for walks almost every day and I do workouts during the day. Try to avoid naps as much as you can unless you are trying to catch up on sleep. Use stretching, meditation, breath work, and things like that to wind down. Find a calming activity that doesn't involve electronics or much thinking, such as reading, coloring, drawing, or listening to a podcast. Doing progressive muscle relaxation. That is basically just going from your feet up to your head and like tensing and relaxing all your muscles. This last one is kind of personal, and I've realized that it has worked really well for me because I used to do this a lot. Not getting angry or upset with myself when I do have trouble sleeping, because it just makes the problem worse. I validate myself and I am kind with myself. If I can't sleep, I get up, I walk around, I lay back down, and I just try to think about nothing. And it's hard. It takes practice. I'm telling you, you cannot do these things overnight. The last thing I want to touch on is getting a sleep study done. If you've tried all the things, all the tools, and you are still struggling, please talk with your doctor about options, getting a sleep study done, using medication, and therapies like EMDR or sleep therapy. Those can all help, especially if you have a sleep disorder. Some sleep disorders can be diagnosed and handled by general practitioners, but some of these disorders need a sleep study to be diagnosed. I'm pretty sure sleep apnea needs a sleep study. So just get in touch with your general practitioner and ask for options. I really hope this episode has encouraged you to reflect on your sleep habits and decide what might work for you, and try one of the many suggestions that I gave you. Sleep is hard for us, so let's try to make it a little easier and more fun for us to actually go to bed instead of dreading it every day. All right, my friend, stay authentic and we will talk soon. By the way, if you want to support this podcast in a bigger way, head over to my Patreon page at patreon.com/authentically ADHD. Let's build a community of ADHDers who understand and support one another. Also, enjoy the perks of early released episodes and free coaching sessions and more. I'd love to welcome you in, so come join and say hi. Hey ADHDer, are you looking for more support with your brain? Do you crave community with people who understand you? You should really check out Focused, the group coaching program I'm a part of that is for adults with ADHD. It's made and run by none other than Kristen Carter of the I Have ADHD podcast. I've grown so much by being in this program, using the tools, and being in the community for over a year now. If you use the link in my show notes, we both save money on this or next month's cost. So I think it's worth it. Go check it out at ihaveadhd.com/focused.